Hello, thanks for joining us. We're going to go through a video series for integration for 2-unit mathematics. The first of the videos in the series will be looking at the terminology we use for integration and the trapezoidal rule. Okay, the first terminology we'll be having a look at is the word subintervals, and that effectively equals the word strips. So in this diagram over here we have 1, 2, 3 strips, or 3 subintervals that break up that area under the curve that we're interested in finding out about. The other terms we might like to get a handle on is function values and ordinates. So over here we have one function value at the very left edge of our diagram, 2, 3, 4. The fourth of our ordinates over here represents our b, which is on our right hand edge. We call a the x value of the left hand edge of the area we are trying to consider here. So there's always one more function value than there are strips. The overall idea of a trapezoidal rule is that it approximates the area under a curve. If we've got a y-axis up here, an x-axis along here, and we've got a curve that does something like that, we might be trying to find the area under the curve. Effectively, what we're trying to find is the area between the curve and the x-axis between two x values, one of which we'll call a and the other one we'll call b. This is the actual trapezoidal rule, and it can get confusing, but this slide and the next slide should be able to tell us a fair bit about it. So we have a h involved here, and this section over here tells us about h. It ends up being the width of each strip that we're talking about, and we get it by subtracting our a value from our b value and then dividing by the number of strips we have. You'll get the hang of that when we get a bit of practice, but let's point out a few other items here. y0 here, as you see from the slide here, is the left edge, the first sort of starting left edge height of the strip, and yn is the right hand edge of the strip. We'll see it more on the next slide. Y values 1, 2, 3 and 4, etc. are the heights of each edge strip as we work from left to right. And n minus 1, yn minus 1 here is the second last height before we get to that b height that we were talking about before. So this next slide shows you a bit more about that. And we'll draw a bit of a spaghetti diagram here. So this y0 goes in there into the formula. This yn at the other end here, I'll show that by popping it in around the long way there. And then each of our y values just slots in underneath our general equation into the various spots of the trapezoidal rule. So there we have that. I'll have to look at an example here. Here we've got a table of values here, and we're asked to use the trapezoidal rule to find the area under a certain curve that has all these measurements in the box over here. So let's launch into figuring this out. We've got the general formula in front of us here, and let's start off by figuring out what h needs to be. Now h equals b minus a divided by n, which is n is the number of strips that we're talking about. Now our b and our a are actually our x values. That's our a there, and that's our b there. And how many strips have we got? Well, we can kind of figure out the strips by having a look at the dividing lines in between the left-hand edge and the right-hand edge. We've actually got how many strips? Let's just check. I think we've got 4 strips in this diagram here. So we have a height of b, which is 4, minus a, which is 0, divided by 4. So h will equal 1 there. Now if the h equals 1, he slots into the trapezoidal rule formula here. So let's start off compiling our trapezoidal rule here. 1 is what we got for h over there. It goes over 2 from the formula there. We'll put a set of square brackets. Our y0, now let me label each of these. This is y1, y2, and y3. This is our yn, and this is our y0. So we're talking about the y values on our table there. y0, as you can see from our table, is 3.7. yn, our last y value, is 4.9. We'll close our bracket, plus 2 lots of our y1 from our table is 5.9. Our y2 is 6.4. And our y3 is 5.1. We'll close the bracket and we'll close our square bracket there. So that's just a bunch of numbers there. So we can keep simplifying here. We've got half at the front of this one, looks like it's 8.6 in the bracket there, plus 2 lots of 5 and 6 is 11, 16, 17.4. And if we did all that very carefully on our calculator, we will get a total of 21.7 approximately. And seeing that's just units there, we would say units squared, because we're finding, remember, the area under the curve. So they'll be square units there. So there you have an example from a table of values. You can also get some values from diagrams that you were given, or from plugging in all the x values that were there asking you about and getting your own y values happening. But I hope that helps, that we went through some terminology, we went through the basic idea of the trapezoidal rule, and then this example to finish with. So all the best with your practice on the trapezoidal rule.